All right, Emma, so I'm going to start your paper by looking at your MLA format and what is present. So this is good. You've got your page numbers with your last name. You have everything here that is correct. Your title is good, but these do need to be capitalized. The new mental health epidemic in does not, but adolescence does. So everything needs to be capitalized except for the in. And then if I look right here, you're missing some spacing here, so you need to be aware of that. Your margins look fine. I'm not going to double check them because it does it automatically in Google Docs. Page numbers continue. It does look a little bit awkward, but I know that's what it's supposed to be. And then, of course, we got to the works cited, and you do not have this in MLA at all. And unfortunately, I have to really ding you points on this one because you need it in MLA format, because that's the big thing with this paper is that's really what the main goal is for you. This is the transferable skill that we want you to take, is to have this MLA format, because otherwise we run into issues of plagiarism and whatever. So if you do not have my packets, I'm going to go into Google real quick, and Purdue OWL MLA Works Cited. A lot of what you have are electronic sources, so you can look at everything that Purdue University has that produces the MLA Works Cited. And I know you're only seeing part of the screen, but if you look on the left-hand side, electronic sources, it'll tell you how to do everything here and use this format, and you can't see everything, but you need to make sure you have this in MLA format, okay? Because otherwise, just having the links here doesn't work, because especially when you move on into MLA and AP Lang, you need this skill. And especially if you are college bound, you're going to want to make sure that you are aware of that. Other than that, you don't have in-text citations either. So check out Purdue OWL for that. I don't know if you missed some of the days that we went over it, but I know we've done this a lot in class, so make sure that you're looking at it. Okay, so MLA format aside, let's start looking at the content of your paper. Your introduction is really set up well. I think you do a good job of recent years mental illnesses have become prevalent in younger generations. I think it's a decent setup of here's what my paper is going to be about. It's enough to get you the real good gist of it, and it's a short enough intro that lets us see a lot of what it'll be. Increase of depression in teens, combination of this and that. So you do a good job of, your thesis is technically in the beginning, but because it's short and concise, your introduction works well. So we start with multiple reasons, being societal expectations, academic pressures, and individual experiences that have caused depression and anxiety to skyrocket to a disturbing rate. So, introduction is set up well. As we move on, next, you have the unrealistic expectations of society are predominantly spread through social media. So it's a good topic sentence, Emma. My problem with it is you haven't really introduced any relevancy to unrealistic expectations of society. And I think you need to retweak this a little bit. Could you move on to talk about beauty standards? And this can cause depression and anxiety. So I think you just need to retweak your topic sentence to something like societal expectations, when not matched, can cause, or something like when we don't equate ourselves or relate ourselves to society expectations, then there is an increase in depression, anxiety, because then you've set up whatever your intro topic sentence is into this. The unrealistic expectations of society are predominantly spread through social media. So my go-to is always, I should be able to read your paper and know what it's about just by reading your topic sentences, your introduction, your topic sentences, the last sentence of each paragraph, and your conclusion. And for this one, it could work. The problem is that should be enough for me to see transitions, and there's no transition from your introduction to here. So, and part of the problem is you go on to irrelevant numbers, which is good, but then you start subbing into their weight, how much money they have, their GPA, and these judgments can destroy a person's confidence. And you go into that, and I think this is all good, and we have the conditioning to think that these numbers really matter. But this paragraph is really all over the place, and you need some context and revisiting to your organization if you want to improve what is going on here. Because you start with social media, but then you get into things that aren't social media, like GPA, and then you get into how people are conditioned to think, and then how society is creating depression and anxiety, which I see the statistic as being something that is good for your paper, but the problem is your paragraph just is not on topic. So think of ways that you can restructure this, because I think you have a lot of good information, Emma. It's just not structured in the best way. And I'll probably say this as a whole class. The problem is you have all been conditioned in the past 3 years to do 5-paragraph essays. Here's my introduction. Here's my first topic. Here's my second topic, counter argument, and then my conclusion. A longer paper is just like a 5-paragraph paper. You're still putting information in a good order with transition. And I think a lot of you have kind of just went and you looked at, you may need more paragraphs, so it's a little bit wonkier, but be aware of that because you're doing the same thing you would with a 5-paragraph. You just need to jot out your ideas. And I didn't have any of you do a outline, which is a skill that I probably should have done with you all. But just looking at the different topics, like have a section on social media, which it doesn't have to be 1 paragraph, but social media, and then physical abilities and something else, education, because that's what I see a lot of your paper is about. All right, your next paragraph. Second factor that causes depression and anxiety is pressures from schools and unmanageable amount of homework that's given to students. First, you have the homework, but that's not mentioned until the next paragraph, so this is not true to your topic sentence. You need to get rid of that. And you have a lot about pressure from schools, and then you have this anecdote about Albert Einstein. And you end with the quote, and this is a quote I really do like, and I think it's good. But here's kind of my problem with this. You go into people feel pressure, but then you don't have any research about how students are feeling pressure, where they got the pressure from, who is telling them that this means they're not intelligent. And the problem with this kind of anecdotal thing is, yes, Albert Einstein is a genius, and he didn't do well at school the way it was structured. However, what I'm going to argue to you is, yes, we have the Einsteins. Yes, we have the Steve Jobs. But there is a significantly larger number of people who do not do well in school that are not Einsteins, that are not Steve Jobs. And that's a very unfortunate reality of what's going on. But this is rough because, and I know people use this argument all the time, I don't think it's a good rhetorical device with anecdotals, because it's like it's Einstein, but there are a lot of people who flunk and do not do well, and they are nothing like Einstein. There are other things going on. So I would err with the caution of this anecdotal, especially being this, because Einstein's struggle in school proves that because someone's not good at one subject doesn't mean they won't excel in another. True. And then you go into grades aren't everything and determine people don't realize intelligence, blah, blah, blah. With that in mind, okay, I had to pause the video for a second to relook at some of these things. So I don't remember where I left, but I think I said with in mind and going with Einstein. Your paper needs to focus more on the research aspect of it, because that's what the goal of this paper was, is to look at research, how is this being affected, and this doesn't tell me anything about anxiety and depression being increased, because you basically spent almost a whole page talking about Albert Einstein, which doesn't really do a whole lot for your paper. And I can see a lot of places where I know there are some articles that will counter a little bit of what you're saying, which is fine. My goal is not to be like, I disagree with you, or here's this research, what do you think about this? The problem is you're putting all this information out here without backing yourself with research and evidence, and that is really what you're missing here. So as we move on, we have a little bit about homework, which again, you know, Emma, you don't have the evidence or research to back yourself up here, and I can see a lot of things that are going on, and I don't want to give everything away, but I know there's differences in countries for academic reasons, where you've got some countries who literally all you do is homework nonstop, and there's a lot of rigor and high expectations for school, and kids are expected to do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G all day, every day, and they score very high and are seen very intelligent. And then you have some other countries where they handle things a little bit more relaxed and lackadaisical, and probably not the right word there, but you know, you've got all these different spectrums, and this is again into that hypothetical with what's going on, and I can see a lot of it. I don't know if this, yeah, and then you've got an awkward spacing here. And I know these are things that kids do, and I know, I hate to tell you, Emma, but we really do think about this. The problem, and I was around a lot, I was your age once upon a time, and when kids were my age, this was the same thing. But the thing is, and this is the really big thing I want to stress to you, you can feel a certain way, and that is absolutely fine, and that is absolutely valid. But for the purpose of what we're doing here, you need research to back this up. And you need evidence that really goes back to what your paper is supposed to be about. And I think this does a better job of, there's a problem with sleeping and sleep problems. And, this could be a topic of itself where you've got a topic sentence and that's your paragraph, but you're not really backing anything up quite yet. And I understand the transition here, but again, you don't really have anything backed up here. So as we move on, you've got PTSD and traumatic experiences, and how it could be confused with depression or anxiety because of similar symptoms. And you have things with the chemical reactions. And I don't think you really need this part right here. You could just say, essentially what happens with when people become overly stressed or stressed for a long period of time, chemicals are released that become poison-like in large quantities. I think this is just kind of filler words that you don't need, because we understand that you're not giving us the whole scientific explanation, but you're giving us a basic for us to understand here. And I don't really know what is going on here to how they react to things differently, because it doesn't have as much to do with anxiety and depression rising. So we go down here, multitude of reasons, fine. I would just put it or and, don't have that slash there. So let's look at this real quick. In conclusion, depression and anxiety in today's youth is rising because of a multitude of reasons. The reasons that were mentioned are only a tiny fraction, blah, blah, blah. So this is technically a comma splice. But to keep this paper from being more than 10 pages long, just a few of the main causes should prove that some changes in society and schools are raising the depression and anxiety rates to unbelievably high levels. Those main causes being societal pressures, academic pressures, and individual experiences. Maybe society and schools should reevaluate the pressures that are being put on kids, so kids in the future will not have to deal with quite as much stress as causing the rapid incline in depression and anxiety. So your conclusion is better. I have a few things / problems / concerns. Putting things like to keep this paper from being more than 10 pages long is kind of like breaking the fourth wall. You shouldn't be doing this in a research paper. And I don't care if it's more than 10 pages long. You just got to do it if it's there. My problem is you don't really have anything that, to me, says rates are rising. You have some things where teens and adolescents feel a certain way, but you need more on what is causing it to rise. I see a lot of how the brain works and how people react to situations, but nothing that proves that it's on the rise. I see a same old argument of kids are upset when they have to do work, and then I don't know if you like hearing that, but that's what I'm reading from your paper. So overall, Emma, you really need research and evidence to back you up with correct MLA format. I would encourage you to do a rewrite.